Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Church Ops 500. Excited about our topic today. Before we jump in, though, would love for everyone, if you're listening, to rate, to like, to share the content with friends, other folks that you believe could be helped, encouraged by the information that we're sharing today, talking about. So, been in a lot of conversations recently just about some hidden gems. Some of the stuff we have coming down the pipe, I'm really excited about. Some folks coming on our podcast to talk about church systems. Only a few people are going to get excited about that, but I believe the systems themselves are huge pieces, components of how you grow your church, how you take a church of maybe a few people to a church of 500 and beyond. And again, the heart behind this podcast always is to support, to help you grow, to get you information, and continue to help you on your journey as you think about what it is to manage the logistics, the systems, the operations for a church operation, a church plant, a church ministry, all those fun things. So we're going to jump into our topic today. It is Church Ops 500, the hidden gems of great volunteer impact. Again, Church Ops 500, the hidden gems of great volunteer impact. So often when we think about volunteers, it's this drudgery. It's this, oh my goodness, I have to figure out my volunteers again. I don't have enough people. I'm always making phone calls. I'm always making calls from the stage. And it seems that no one really wants to dig into what it looks like for volunteers. I've heard a lot of great talks on it. I think there's a lot of great information out there. But I believe today we're going to talk about a couple of things that I think are kind of hidden in the midst. I think some you will have heard before. Others I really do believe are gems, things that until I got into this deeply, I never really considered as something that could impact church operations at a high level. So we're going to jump into the different topics. We're going to have fun with it. Hopefully you'll walk away with some information that helps you grow in your planning when it comes to this, helps you kind of figure out even more so, here is a way that I can grow my ministry, that I can do the real work of getting into the weeds of this. So first thing, number one, how do you build a strong volunteer team? That's the question. That's what we're looking at. I would say one of the most important things is relationships. Often when we think about this topic, you hear all the time, you need to be really relational. You need to build with your team. And I don't discount that at all. But I think one of the things that I often took away when I heard that is I've got all this extra work that I need to do in building these relationships. And one of the things you're going to immediately come up against is the sustainability of that. How do I shake every hand? How do I know every person on our team? For example, for us here with our hospitality team, I'm at a place now where I have almost 60, 70 people as a part of this team. And some of you may be watching this and you say, I've got 5, 6 people on my team, or you could be listening and I don't know, you've got thousands of people. And if you have thousands of people, then you probably already have this information. And I've kind of figured some of this stuff out. But when we think about that, the sustainability of that is hard. One of the hidden gems I believe is in this is when you think about relationships, I challenge you not to think about your relationship with the hospitality member or your team member or whatever team you're on. I speak about hospitality because that's the team that I run. But I would encourage you to not just think about your relationship with them, but also think about their relationship with one another and their relationship when it comes to faith. And we'll get a little bit more into that relationship of faith in a later topic, a later button that we have for this. But first, thinking beyond just your relationship with the person. Ultimately, you get past 10, 12 people, sustainability of you being able to have strong relationships with your team members is going to be really hard. So how do you do it? I encourage you to look at the relationships around and ask yourself, does the serving environment help to grow and sustain relationships with your team members? So some of the things you consider when the team shows up, what's the first thing that they do? Do they jump right into getting things done? Often we get into that rat race of getting things done, especially as a smaller church. I would encourage you to stop and go, hey, do we have a huddle moment where we're able to encourage one another, where we're able to pray with one another? These are things that begin to boost the likelihood of stronger relationships. I would also encourage you to look at your midweek rhythms when you think about it. If the only time your teams are engaging on a Sunday, we are subconsciously telling them the only time that it's important to engage is on a Sunday. So what do your hangouts look like outside of that? So do you have any small group gatherings? Do you challenge some of your more relational people? If you say, hey, I'm not the most relational person, Find those people that are on your team, empower them to go, hey, we should have meetups, we should have hangout times outside of the space of this. And maybe you're there as a leader, maybe you aren't. How do you get your team to start building relationally, not just with you, but with one another? Like I said, a great place to start with that is to consider what your Sunday morning looks like. We often offer food to our serving teams as well. And we have this little kind of around the table moment. They may be stuffing a bagel in their mouth or grabbing some fruit as they head to their position. But the hope is that even at that moment, they get a chance to engage, to talk with one another. And I would even challenge you as a leader, when you are out and about on a Sunday morning, making sure you stop and ask how your team members are doing. And here's the next step: getting them to do the same thing. Again, often when I watch these videos, I hear this, it's very much me center focused. What am I doing in light of relationship? But if you can get your team to dig into relationship, you'll find you get a lot more traction, and you'll find that people will start serving even in windows where they don't need to. They hop up, they join in, because it has become more about relationship than simply filling a task. Another one that often I think is missed is the number of services. Often we believe that you should only have more services if you are busting at the seams. One of the statistics, and I would wonder to hear if it's still the same. 80% full is full. After COVID, I think that number probably has shifted a little, and it's not quite the case at 80%. But if you're waiting for a second service for your first service to be full, I think you're missing a valuable opportunity. And this is another one of those hidden gems when it comes to your volunteer impact, your volunteer management. Having one service forces your team to choose between serving and going to church, right? They have to choose between going to church and serving. That is a hard choice to make. So you may find that your volunteer base, especially for your next generation team, folks that can't be involved in the upstairs environment when they're serving, continues to be very small, and it's hard to get people to say yes, because intrinsically they're making that choice. Do I drive all the way to the building to serve and to not hear the message? Now, there is a key component in when you move to two services, but I believe that every church should be on its way to two services in some format for this very reason, no matter how many people you have. So maybe you have 10 people and you're like, we're nowhere near it. How do you start building the blocks to get you there? First and foremost, you should go ahead now and invest in either a live stream process or a way to record your services. What does that do for you? Now the folks that are serving, even though they may not be able to come to the live service, they can now go back and watch the service. It may allow you to get at least one Sunday, possibly 2 Sundays of them serving, because now they do not have to choose between hearing the message, hearing worship, and serving. So how do you remove that as a barrier? I believe recording your services or being able to produce a live stream is a great way to do that. And there are now so many companies out that are helping to produce live stream, who will produce and manage your sound, your audio. There's a lot of resources out there. If you are someone who's looking at that, taking that step, and you need more information, please reach out. I've got a ton of resources that I could share with you as we've climbed this mountain recently. Also, if you're able to deepen your bench enough for your serving team, so think beyond just the basic, I've got all the shifts covered. How do you get 2, 3 people deep in covering a shift or covering one of your serving opportunities? This will allow you to potentially get to a place where your serving teams only need to serve once a month. Now, it's going to feel like overkill. It's going to feel like you have way too many people serving. But what does this do? This gives you the space to be able to support the volunteer need to move to 2 services. Often one of the biggest bumpers, and people get really nervous about 2 services, is because when you move, you now have 2 services to cover in scheduling. And you went, that didn't fix my problem. That just multiplied it. In truth, it actually creates more space for you to solve this volunteer management challenge. This is why I call it a hidden gem. I firmly believe that moving to 2 services is not about managing the people in the room, but providing opportunity for growth. And then from there, adding any service after that, your third, your fourth, your fifth, that is because you've grown to a place where now you need more room. So shifting our minds from 2 services automatically means because we're running out of space. No, 2 services provides opportunity for you to serve and to see a service, provides opportunity for you to deepen your bench, and provides opportunity for folks to be able to select a service and not have to choose between serving and hearing the word, hearing worship. Like I said, some of your great steps to that: live stream or some type of recording, deepening your bench when it comes to who's serving when, so that you have more than enough folks serving. And even if you have people who say, hey, this area really isn't the place I want to serve, that's okay. You can use them in this season to help you get to the place where you can launch 2 services. And when you think about the number of the people in the room, don't let the number of people in the room dictate solely when you move to 2 services. So this becomes a huge component of what you're considering when it comes to that. So first and foremost, we've got it: relationships, not just yours, but the whole team's. Also, the number of services. 1 service is not enough, no matter how many people you have. If you can begin to wrap your mind around that idea, you'll begin to grow in ways that I believe you didn't imagine, anticipate, or had considered before. Finally, the vision. We talked about this a little earlier when I said, hey, relationship is a piece of it, but also the faith component, the calling from God is one of the most important pieces I believe that exists. I call this piece just sharing the vision. One of the things that our lead pastor says here often, and I completely agree, is that people will temporarily sacrifice for an obligation. They'll jump in, they'll do the work. But when you really think about vision, people will sacrifice forever for a vision. So people will serve out of obligation, but they will sacrifice for a vision. So are you creating a vision for your people when it comes to serving? If I use an example, thinking about our shuttle team has a choice. They can see themselves as someone who just picks people up from one parking lot, drops them off at the church, and then returns them to their destination. That is an option. That is an obligation of serving. But when we talk about serving through sacrifice, through vision, no, as a shuttle driver, you are the first face that my folks see when they come on a morning. A guest who's not sure where they're going, doesn't have the information. You get to be the first face that greets them, that says good morning, that you're excited to see them. You set the tone for everything that follows next. On your ride over, it can be a ride of silence, or just like those New York taxi drivers, for the ones that you get a good one, you go, man, they're telling me the sights, the sounds, what do I need to know when I get to the building? By the time they finish their 2, 3, 5 minute drive, however long it takes to get to the building, they now get out of the shuttle with names, faces, locations. Hey, the bathrooms might be hard to find. Here's where they are. That's the difference between simply serving and having a vision of what could come next. And when they finish service, they're coming back to the shuttle. You get the opportunity, the honor to hear, hey, how did it go? Hope you enjoyed it. Anything we can do differently? So are your team serving out of a obligation? Hey, I just need someone to fill this position. Or are you sharing a vision that gets them excited about serving? Remember, people will serve out of obligation, but they will sacrifice for a vision. So they get to see why their role matters. So final piece for us today. And I'm going to then run through a couple of questions that I think I often get around this topic. Get into multiplication instead of addition. What does this mean? I think a great book that kind of talks about this is the multiplication factor. So I think that's the right title for it. Multiplication factor. I definitely will link it down here at the bottom of the podcast so that you can find it. But when you think about multiplying your processes rather than an addition, what does that mean? Some of what we talked about earlier with relationship, not yours, but the relationships with your team. You must become a leader that makes leaders and empowers others to do the job. How do you get yourself to a place where you're no longer taking care of the tasks, but you're engaging the people and training them on how to engage? So where are your empowering places? This will be a key factor in being able to multiply rather than add. If everyone continues to come to you for all the answers, it may feel good, but you are working from a place of addition, not multiplication. Yes, you must have clear systems to take someone for the first time attender to a leader or serving on a team. This is a hidden gem when it comes to your volunteer process. Often you have new people come to your building and they don't know the process. They don't know how to get involved. So you need a system that takes them from the first engagement all the way through to serving and potentially being a leader. That system has to be clear. It has to be known by your whole team. And that place of empowering for us, everything starts with a connection card. We don't call it first time guest. We don't even have a first time guest gift. We have a gift when you choose to connect with us. So that's getting a name, an email address, and a phone number. That way we can follow up with you. You become a part of our system and you get a gift, a thank you for connecting with us. We even call it our connection point. Why? Because you visiting is great, but you connecting is what we're after. So that first step becomes vitally important. And as they work through that process over and over again, they hear, how do I get involved? How do I connect with the life of the church? How do I become someone who volunteers or gives of my time, talent, and treasure within the church? This process becomes vitally important because if you don't have the system, then you can't take this next nuance, this hidden gem. With every system, you need people who carry the system from one step to the next. You can never remove the personal touch, right? So if I've got a connection card, I'm carrying it to the person to have they fill it out. I'm also helping empower my team to know, hey, when you bring a visitor, when you bring someone who's never been here before, make sure you get them to that connection point. Make sure you get them to fill out a card to be a part of what we're doing. Once we have that information, they're now in our systems. And we move from a place of simply just addition, working from one person, to beginning to multiply our process through systems and personal touch. What happens when everyone in the church who calls your church home knows the connection process and is looking to connect with others? You've now multiplied the work. It's no longer just you or your staff doing the work, and you'll see the benefit and the fruit over time. Imagine having simply 2 people fill out a connection card a week. Even if one of those people gets involved, out of 4 Sundays, you now have 4 people involved. As you continue throughout the year, 2 months, you've got 8, and you continue on and on. By the end of the year, you have more volunteers than you need because you've created a system and a process that engages people. And at every step, there's a person engaging and asking, inviting them into the vision of what you're doing, into the heart of becoming a volunteer. So these are the hidden gems that I believe are often overlooked when it comes to strong volunteer teams. 1, building relationships, not yours, the team's. How do you get the team to build relationship? The other, the number of services. I firmly believe no matter how large you are, one service is not enough. Why? Because it keeps people from being able to be a part of service and serving. They got to choose. The sooner you can get out of that game, the better. Also, share the vision. Remember, people will serve out of obligation, but they will sacrifice for a vision. And finally, get into multiplication instead of addition. If you're the only one championing your volunteer process, you have no systems and no way for others to engage. You will be left in the loop of addition rather than multiplication. You want to get to the place where connection cards, whatever system you use, are coming in faster than you can invite. That means your system is getting to a place where you're now multiplying. So some of the questions I often get is, I don't have enough people to do any of this, right? Work the system. Remember when I talked about the connection card, 2 people fill it out. Maybe one of them sticks. Each week you have 2 people filling it out. One of those people stick. You've got 4 new volunteers. Use the flywheel momentum. And if those volunteers are trained to get other volunteers, then all of a sudden you're in a multiplication where it was just you doing it. Now you got 4 people who are involved in the process being a part of things. So you don't have enough people. You will if you work the system and you've got a solid system in place that allows you to capture information consistently and hold on to it. Maybe another one of the questions that comes along is, I'm not even sure what this could look like for us. I am a firm believer of stealing in a godly way the information that you can. I have yet to meet someone who was winning at something that isn't willing and excited to share how they're winning. So you've got other churches in the area. The internet, being able to search churches that are doing this work, huge. Give me a call, shoot me a text, email, any of those things. I love being able to share on these topics. And what I found is I am not the only one. So how do you get inspiration? Visit other churches. So if you can't be away from your church at least one Sunday, that's a problem within itself. Get to a place where you're able to visit other churches, see what other ministries are doing, get to some of these workshops, some of these seminars. Many times they're virtual and you can attend and watch online. Find the places where the information is there. And like I said, most of the folks that I know that are doing this work are overjoyed to share what they're learning, are overjoyed to share the information to help you win at ministry as well. Because at the end of the day, this is kingdom work and it's the big C church, not the little C church. So how do we help one another win on a regular basis? So thank you guys for listening today. Hopefully the information was encouraging. Hopefully you found some things that will help you move the ball down the field, will help you get closer and closer to the church that you've envisioned and you've imagined, getting your operations and your systems as robust as possible. Always remember, your amount of resources don't speak for you, but how you use them says everything. Every day with the right tools, it's possible for you to do the impossible with less. So please remember, like, share. And like I said, we've got some amazing podcasts coming up. I'm looking at doing a series coming up on church systems. I'm super excited about it. And I think it's going to be huge for you all to be able to break some of these things down into components, into usable blocks. So be on the lookout for the next podcast. Thank you guys for following. As always, please like, consume, wherever you're consuming this, like it, share it, so we can get it out there to as many people as possible to support as many of God's churches as we can. Church Ops 500. Let's go. Thank you guys for spending the last few minutes with me.